All right, so in this video, what we're gonna be covering is dux-soup Turbo. I'm gonna show you exactly what's different between this new program and their old versions, as well as any other type of automation, LinkedIn automation that's out there. But more importantly than that, I'm actually gonna go through a quick walkthrough or a setup of what I think the most valuable functionality within this new dux-soup Turbo program is, and it's called remote control. Lastly, I'm going to cover the three biggest use cases for this functionality. Those are actually getting more leads and getting more demos booked in, then actually turning those demos into more customers by getting more people to show up for your meetings. And then lastly, one thing that not a lot of people are looking at in terms of the functionality for LinkedIn automation, but actually preventing churn of your existing customers. So let's get right into it. All right, so what is the difference between the professional version of dux-soup and the new Turbo version, as well as how it's different from really any other LinkedIn automation tool on the market? It's what they've been calling this idea of workflows. So if you've used dux-soup before or any other LinkedIn automation tool like Linked Helper or Lead Connect or whatever, you know you can automate the top of funnel activity, which just means profile views, messages, that kind of thing. Well, what is totally different, and you'll notice on their features page here, even professional and turbo, almost all the things are the same except for this workflow integration section. So right here, this is what's so much different than the previous version. And what you'll notice if you're subscribed to dux-soup and you actually go ahead and purchase Turbo, this connect tab will now be not grayed out. And they have three kind of feature sets here that you can enable. So this is so much different because the webhook and the message bridge, in my opinion, they're really just catching up to the rest of the market because it now allows you to send your activity that you're doing either automatically or manually through LinkedIn to a CRM. Obviously, that's super valuable, but I know that there were some other tools that were sending activity to HubSpot before, and probably why, if any reason why people weren't using dux-soup, that's probably why. So they've caught up to everybody else, and how that specifically works is a webhook, just a fancy way of saying like any actual information that we're collecting from the LinkedIn profiles or the activity that you're doing on LinkedIn, we're gonna send it to a specific place. So the webhook allows you to send it anywhere, really. And I can show you through Zapier. If you're not familiar with Zapier, that's probably the easiest way to get that data into a CRM or some way of using it effectively. And the message bridge is really just copying your inbox to that CRM as well, so that you have what a lot of big companies call data integrity. So just knowing that all of your information about your customers and your prospects are in one place. This just makes sure that if you have a sales team and you're working with a group of people, you're not stepping on each other's toes. You have context to what's already been done or any other interactions. And if you're a manager, you know like what your people are doing on a daily basis. All like pretty standard stuff. Obviously super, super valuable. But what I think is going to be the most transformational about this feature, especially if you start using it before it becomes commonplace, because that's how lead generation works, is people try and automate things that are previously had to be done manually and were effective. So 2 years ago, cold email was crazy effective because it was so hard to get people's individual emails. Then people started messaging on LinkedIn, and they started using video, and then then they started doing more personalized emails, etc. Right? But every time people are willing to put in a little bit more work, somebody's going to try and automate it, and that's kind of what remote control does. In a really simple way of explaining it, I guess, is that you can take a piece of context that somebody or an event from somewhere else in your marketing funnel and actually use that to trigger a LinkedIn activity or event. So let's say somebody downloads a PDF or ebook from your site. You can then actually go and view that person's LinkedIn page automatically, or you can connect with them, or if you're already connected with them, you can actually send them a message. And at the end of the video, or the third section, that's where I'm going to give you some different use cases as to like how you can actually implement that feature into your business to get more customers. But I think before we cover that, what's actually super valuable if you're going to like communicate this to other people in your company is some statistics on it. So Zoom Info put out this information about why personalization and why context is so important. And I think this goes in line with what dux-soup is trying to do. They know that
the old way of doing LinkedIn automation where you send 200 connection requests and play the quote unquote numbers game is just really not working anymore because people are aware of it now, right? So it seems very inauthentic and you're really not adding a whole lot of value typically because it's hard to have context at that level of volume. So what they're showing you here with the statistics is that I think the moral of the story, you can go through this, I'll leave a link to it, but the moral story here is that, you know, people do care and do want to interact with companies that are giving them information that's contextual to their position or the information they're looking for, their position in the buying cycle, right? So look at all these numbers. 70, 80% of people like that have been polled, yes, they would prefer to interact with companies that are feeding them information that's personalized to them, right? People care about it. Even just think about the way that you make buying decisions. Like you care about, I can guarantee you that if a company was going to send out a blanket message to you and everybody else about something, they may hit a small percentage of people that are at that exact moment. But let's say somebody else was going to send you information at different times of the purchase decision, even if it was for sneakers, for example. If they knew that you had a race coming up and they were going to present you an offer on these new running shoes, you know, you're more likely to engage with that company as opposed to Nike that's just constantly doing like a general brand, you know. Could be a bad example, but what this data is basically saying, moral of the story, is people care about personalization. It's effective. You can see like the impact of website personalization. I know this isn't specific to LinkedIn automation, but this is the macro of how personalization affects marketing and it affects people making buying decisions. So the impact of website personalization is crazy high. You know, people hate when the website is not personalized to them, and actually they make more purchases when it is. The last thing that I think that this data tells is just not only are people going to respond and open your emails more if they are personalized, like 17% to 11%, but 6 times higher transaction rate personalized emails get. Like, I'm just emphasizing the idea that like this remote control thing is game changing because it allows you to do this at a little bit of scale, but also include context. Because now we can do personalization based on an event that's already happening in somebody's, you know, buying cycle. The last thing I'm going to show you in the data section here is that, you know what, we've already proved that people want to engage with companies that are doing personalization, and that actually personalization does have a massive effect on sales. But it looks like, based on this data, that people are struggling to implement it. So that's exactly why I'm putting together this walkthrough. And in the next section, I'm going to show you how to implement a simple workflow where, you know, for example, somebody books a demo or somebody downloads something from your site, and then you connect with them on LinkedIn. So let's jump into that. All right, so once you've purchased dux-soup Turbo, how you can actually go about setting up, you know, an example scenario, like I mentioned earlier, of taking somebody's new email address and sending them a personalized connection request in LinkedIn is as follows. So once you have access to that Connect tab in your dux-soup profile, again, after you've purchased dux-soup Turbo, you'll get these 3 features. Some of the questions that I had is you don't really have to change too much about actions once you enable remote control. So I have a few other things, but like literally all I think you need to have on, I've tried this in different scenarios. You don't need to have this on, you don't need to have this on. But as far as I know, you do have to have this enabled for this to work automatically. So you go here, just turn this one on if this is all you're using it for, is the remote control. And then you're going to need to set up these 2 pieces of information when you're authenticating dux-soup as a new application in Zapier. So you click API docs. This is all you have to do. It's really, really simple. This should not be intimidating. Click API docs, and then you get sent to this page. So now they have pretty good tutorials of how to set this all up. This is exactly how I was able to figure out how to do it, and I'm not a developer. So you click through this link, sending remote control commands with Zapier, and you need to do this because you can't go to Zapier and actually set up this app. It's not on their suggested apps. You have to do this. It's by invite only. So once you click this, they're going to prompt you to put in that key, just copy and paste, and then you can start setting up Zapier. So if you're not familiar with Zapier, They have a whole other section on the basics of Zapier, but it's essentially for layman's or people like myself who don't know how to code. You can connect different applications to be able to talk to each other. So what this looks like in practice is I have two different versions of the setup. So at the most basic level, you can use, again, one application like Google Sheets. Let's say you just have one sheet with one column that says LinkedIn URLs, and you find those LinkedIn URLs, you paste them in there, and then dux-soup will automatically take an action. So they'll automatically connect with that person or all those people. They'll automatically view those profiles. So a use case I can think of here is, for example, let's say you require salespeople to, every time they're going into a meeting or a demo, you have to fill out your CRM with that person's LinkedIn URL. As the owner or the manager, you're going to grab a list of all those from the last week or month and then connect with them personally on LinkedIn. So obviously there's still some manual work required to that type of workflow, but if you have any other tools in your marketing stack, if you're willing to subscribe to really anything else, you can actually, just by using one or two other tools, make this almost completely automated. And this is where the effectiveness starts to go kind of exponential. So in this other tool or this other setup, you can see there's just one extra step. So here is the first app that I would use as the trigger. So in the most common use case, I'm going to suggest people use their MailChimp integration there. They're going to use their whatever tool, maybe it's Intercom when people are starting a new trial of their SaaS application. Maybe it's even Calendly when people book a demo. But there's some tool there that's going to be the trigger for you wanting to reach out and connect with that person one-on-one via LinkedIn. So you can use that and say like, okay, I got their email now. I know who this person is. This intermediate step is what is really going to facilitate this full automation process. I use a program called Clearbit for this. You can use Full Contact. There's other tools. This does require an additional subscription. So there's obviously a little bit more cost associated with fully automating this, but like some people have said before, you know, you kind of fall down to the level of your systems that you have implemented. You don't rise up to the potential of every one-on-one interaction in your sales process. So by having this fully automated, I think it's super powerful. But again, so what I would recommend here at a very base level, everybody should be doing this. If a customer is worth like any amount of money to you, you use the place where you're getting their emails from. Let's say you have any type of inbound lead channel. Use this as the trigger. Then grab the subscription to Clearbit or Full Contact or some tool that's going to give you a LinkedIn URL based on that email, and then send it to a Google Sheet. And why you have to do that is because any new rows of LinkedIn URLs are going to allow you to then trigger your dux-soup zap. And that will basically allow you to set up different scenarios of when you can either view somebody's profile or connect with them with a specific message. And it's really as simple as that. I'm not going to actually go through the whole, process, but you can see like this is dux-soup. This is the two options you get. So they need a profile, and like a few gotchas, I guess, that'll cover right now are these tools sometimes return not the full LinkedIn URL. They just return the extension, the like /in/ the actual person's identifier. So I just prefix that with the first part of the URL, and it works perfectly. So you can do that, and then this is the same commands or custom variables that dux-soup's going to use, and you can. And this is just a sample that I have set up here, but then you paste in the message, and that is it. These are triggered automatically. So as soon as those new profile URLs hit, you can set up it to send automatically. You can set up a delay here with Zapier. There's a lot of different ways that you can potentially have this set up, but it could be potentially fully automated, especially if you're using another tool like Clearbit. So in this last section, I'm just going to actually show you a few more use cases. I know this is a little bit in the weeds and technical for some people, but I'm going to show you some use cases, and hopefully this will get you excited about like where I would suggest you to start implementing this as soon as possible. All right, so what other use cases or scenarios can you use this new Turbo to really get your money back and start more effectively reaching out to people on LinkedIn? So the three that I mentioned initially were the SDR use case of booking more meetings. SDR is just sales development representative or somebody who's doing prospecting. The second one is actually getting more people to show up to demos or your sales meetings, so your actual salespeople, so that they can close more meetings or close more customers. And then the last one is more like churn prevention, or if you have a customer success team or maybe account managers, giving them some tools or ability to reach out to people maybe when they drop off from either using your app or some other type of event. So I think what most people associate LinkedIn automation with is the prospecting use case. So let's cover that first. I think what is most valuable there is if you're using some other tools, then based on engagement, trigger a connection request. So if you have an SDR that's typically doing like all phone calls or all emails, what I would suggest is trying to look into a program where hopefully you're doing some video stuff. So if you use something like Wistia and Soapbox, they're going to allow you to set up a Zap where if somebody views your video and gives you their email address, then you can send them a connection request right away, right? So think about scenarios where people are engaging with the content that you have or that your SDRs or that you're prospecting with, but are really just not replying yet. So another use case that I use, and I do this manually, this is why I'm so excited about this, is because I go into the email program that we developed to do outbound or prospecting. And for anybody that's really engaged with the emails there, but has yet to reply, then I'll go and actually reach out to them. So let's say they have more than 25 opens and maybe they have a link click. There are some email tools out there that will allow you to then send a trigger event to Zapier and now connect with that person. So it's like almost an additional touch, but only for the people that you know are already interested in your messaging. So again, think about that scenario, right? So if you're reaching out to a lot of people at one time, maybe you send out 50 like highly segmented messages all to owners of the specific industry that you work with, but only 10 or 15 of those people took the time to open your email, and 5 of those people actually opened it 10 or 15 times and clicked through a link, but only 2 replied. Now you can instead take those other people that didn't reply but also were obviously interested in your messaging and send them a connection request and just say, hey, so-and-so, hey, Brock, by the way, noticed you were checking out our content. Thanks so much for reading our blog post. Just wanted to let you know that this is also something people were interested in, or just wanted to let you know that I'm open to answering questions, or like if you were interested in talking, we can take 15 minutes. Here's my calendar link. That added interaction is inevitably going to increase your conversion rates down the funnel. So that's the use case I think is going to be the most effective. If you have somebody dedicated to sales, the other thing that I think is going to be super, super valuable is a lot of times people struggle getting people to show up on meetings, right? Especially if you have a very low touch, or if you're just running Facebook ads to a lead form and that first interaction, maybe book a demo link on your website, is very like there's low friction there. A lot of times there will be a percentage of people that just don't show up on those meetings. So to prevent that, or to actually get more people to show up, is when you have an account manager or a salesperson that's been assigned that account, get them to connect with that person automatically. Now there's that one-on-one engagement there, and they're going to feel more responsible to show up on those meetings. The last version or the last use case that I can think of that's going to be hopefully super effective is if you have the ability to trigger an event based on somebody not taking action inside your application or inside your sales funnel, then you can get an account manager to reach out to hopefully that existing customer or somebody that is far along in your sales process and intervene there. So to prevent something that you may don't want to happen, obviously, right? So the use case I think of the most there is, let's say you're just using Intercom and you have a SaaS application. Let's say somebody falls out of that like last 30 days active. You can actually use that as a trigger and then get your success person to send a message. Let's say the success person was responsible for connecting one-on-one with all of their new accounts, or even if they weren't connected, you can send that person a connection request and just say like, hey, I'm responsible for helping people have the most success with, so-and-so program, XYZ company. And I just noticed that, you guys hadn't used it in a few weeks. Wanted to reach out, make sure that you knew I was here to help you one-on-one. Feel free to book a demo in my calendar, and we can talk over like any issues that you're having. That type of outreach is going to be like insanely valuable. Hopefully you can start to grasp like the impact that this turbo feature and remote control can have for your business. Because in the past, you had to get people and rely on individuals that were just excellent employees and proactive at reaching out and helping your customers. Now you can build processes around that happen automatically. And when those people respond, now it just reflects better because you're going to do it consistently, and that's going to be built into the brand reputation for your company. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend you looking into how you can start to implement Turbo in your sales process, and if not sales, in your customer success and account management process for your company. If you have any questions about how to kind of implement some of these ideas that I've talked about, I'm going to go into a lot more detail in the blog post that I linked below, and it's going to just lay out step by step a lot of things I talked about so that you can follow along without having to pause the video over and over. So I really encourage you to check out that post. Super excited about the Turbo feature, and hope I get a chance to talk to you guys soon. Cheers.